JRPGs are a genre which merge the serialized storytelling of manga with stat-driven gameplay whose origins can be traced all the way back to tabletop games. In other words, there's a lot of them, which is why we turn to you, dear viewers, to ask, what are some of your favorites? And boy, you did not disappoint. Hey, it's Game Rant, and here are what gamers said were their favorite JRPGs. You gotta give RPG fans credit. Despite the prolonged length of these games, often spanning over 100 hours for completionists, JRPG players somehow throw back triple-digit campaigns like they're nothing. As you'll see, nearly every answer we received wasn't one or two titles, but an entire list. Starting off with Nini, who said Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts 1, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Connected, Nier Replicant, and Tales of Symphonia. I haven't really played a lot of JRPGs, and I normally stick with franchises like Final Fantasy and Xenoblade, but I really want to branch out. Games like Golden Sun, Chrono Trigger, Radiant Historia, and more Pokemon. Great answers, Nini, but we're gonna politely disagree and say you have played a lot of JRPGs. In fact, many of the answers we received agreed with Nini and highlighted the 10th main entry in the Final Fantasy series, which debuted all the way back in the year 2001 on the PlayStation 2. At the time, this was a major shakeup for the Final Fantasy series. Going from their watershed achievements on the PlayStation 1 to a new platform raised expectations to higher levels. And thankfully, Squaresoft delivered, with far more complex models, an incredible soundtrack, and for the first time, voice acting. That's right, if you like your Final Fantasy chatty, it all started right here. The ending was not without controversy, but the tremendous ensemble cast of characters has only helped its reputation grow in the past 2 decades. Up next, we have Solomon, who said, Final Fantasy X, Tales of Eternia, Shin Megami Tensei 5, Final Fantasy VII, Shadow Hearts, Golden Sun, Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy IX, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, Golden Sun 2, and Skies of Arcadia would be here, but never played it, only watched. Castlevania Symphony of the Night would be here, but I don't consider it a JRPG. Wow, Solomon, first of all, shoutouts to Shadow Hearts. Who remembers buying a JRPG from Midway Games? As controversial as the Judgment Ring was, Shadow Hearts in its early 20th century setting were unlike any other JRPG then or now, really. But even if you haven't played it, Solomon, we'll totally take this opportunity to say Skies of Arcadia is a lost gem that deserves a remake or remaster ASAP. This was during Sega's Blue Sky period, and it doesn't get much more blue sky than this. You're literally sky pirates in this charming adventure that's sadly stuck on the Dreamcast with a lesser port on the Nintendo GameCube. Come on, Sega, you know what to do. Moving over to Cirilana, we've got ourselves a mammoth list. No particular order, all of these rotate in my top 5 all-time mood. And the list may go beyond 10 titles, because it's anything that pops in my head in 2 minutes time. Nier Automata, Replicant is fine too, Dragon Quest IX, Final Fantasy VII, Dragon Quest XI, The World Ends With You, Final Fantasy IV, every Suikoden main title, Persona 5 Royal, Trials of Mana Remake, Eiyuden 100 Heroes, Star Ocean 3, Sea of Stars, Star Ocean The First Departure, Tales of Vesperia, Tales of Berseria, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Scarlet Nexus. Too many more to remember in this moment. I'm sure I missed more than I wanted to. Whoa, a mighty list to be sure, but that's one of quality. Suikoden was one excellent JRPG that sadly doesn't have much of a future at this moment, but if developer Konami feels like reviving the franchise, as they have with many of their other properties in recent history, we'll absolutely be there day one. But let's circle back to Nier Automata, a controversial pick to be sure. Not for its quality, mind you. Nier Automata is among the best games of its generation. But is it a JRPG? Or is it a hack and slash with action gameplay? Or is it an action JRPG with highly customizable stats? Either way, everyone should play Nier Automata for its mind-blowing story. Up next, we have GA, with a list of their own. Number 1, Xenogears. Number 2, Chrono Trigger. Number 3, Final Fantasy VI. Number 4, Seiken Densetsu 3. Number 5, Tales of Symphonia. Number 6, Final Fantasy VIII. Number 7, Parasite Eve. Number 8, Grandia. Number 9, Nier Automata. Number 10, Legend of Dragoon. If tactical RPGs count, then Final Fantasy Tactics would be tied for number 1, and Tactics Ogre would be around number 4 or so. Great list, GA, and exactly what we were just talking about. Some folks are very picky about what they consider JRPGs. Personally speaking, we'll absolutely include Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre for their exceptional gameplay. But we must address a surprisingly popular choice, Xenogears. Released all the way back in 1998 on the PlayStation 1, this was the start of the Xeno series, which later included Xenosaga and Xenoblade. While those games have branched out into different sequels, this dark and brooding story of giant mecha and emotional trauma stands alone, and is a perfect fit for fans of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Up next is Alex, who was in agreement, but also brought a few answers of their own. Xenogears, Suikoden 1 and 2, Final Fantasy 7 and 10, Persona 4 and 5, Nier Automata, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and 13 Sentinels. I'm counting it as a JRPG. Hey, we agree, Alex, and we're glad to finally talk about the Persona franchise. Sure, it's currently the most popular JRPG series, and yes, Persona 5 is a bit overexposed at the moment. But taken as a game, Persona 5 is one of the very best JRPGs of all time, with a bumping soundtrack, a great voice cast in both languages, and an eye-catching art style that makes even the pause menu a work of art. Continuing with that trend, we have Helmus, dropping a full list of games. Number 1, Chrono Cross. Number 2, Final Fantasy 6, 9, and 4. Number 3, Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, 3 Houses, and Awakening. Number 4, Xenoblade 1, 3, and 2 in that order. Number 5, Persona 4 and 5. Number 6, Tales of Phantasia, Vesperia, and Berseria. Number 7, Bravely Default. Number 8, Radiant Story. Number 9, Nier Automata. And number 10, Rune Factory 4. A big agree to Chrono Cross. One of the most divisive JRPGs of all time, some fans were expecting a clear and direct follow-up to Chrono Trigger. Instead, they got something altogether different that just happens to be one of the best JRPGs of all time. And another big agree to Fire Emblem, a franchise that fought back from the verge of cancellation to eclipsing everything Intelligent System produces. Personally, we'll always love the audacious Fire Emblem Fates. And you know what? Fire Emblem Engage on the Nintendo Switch deserves a lot more love. Up next, we have Rob, who's echoing a lot of the statements we've seen so far. Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts series, Persona 5 Royal, Chrono Trigger, and Sea of Stars. But again, we're gonna have to ask, what is a JRPG? Because a game like Kingdom Hearts was once very much considered to be not a JRPG. It was considered an action game. But these days it appears to be accepted as a JRPG, even though they got rid of the Final Fantasy characters. We don't get it, but you know what? Maybe that's the point of Kingdom Hearts. And lastly, we have Neon, who says, I wish and hope for this wonderful game called Dark Cloud 1 and Dark Chronicle 2 to get remastered for PS5. And finally, after years of waiting, Dark 3 needs to happen and to be made. Well, Neon, we can't promise anything, but we can boost the signal. In the meantime, you can absolutely play Dark Cloud 1 and Dark Cloud 2, aka Dark Chronicle, on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. These are some of the most underrated JRPGs, at least as time has gone on. Dark Cloud 2 in particular was showered with praise and award nominations. So Level 5, now that you're all done with Yokai Watch, maybe do Neon a solid and get started on Dark Cloud 3. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this thread. We want to thank everyone who provided their answers and encourage everyone to keep clicking around here in Game Rant, where the conversation goes on and on. And we'll see you next time.